We got some assembly lube here. I would go ahead, open these up. You can shoot it on your finger just so that way we can lube up everything in here. Lube up your valve. Again, these valves, cool thing about them is I got them all machined out, so they've already got a little bit of assembly lube. I'm just doing this so I'm not metal on metal when I'm installing everything. Everything's gonna be nice and smooth. Another thing you're gonna use this on is your keepers. Because when we try to do the keeper retainers there, I know everyone gets angry when I say retainers. They say, no, they are not valve retainers, they are keepers. Anyways, now that I've done my little rant, go ahead, make sure those are all lubed up. Now that they are, we're gonna go ahead and take these little pieces here, slide them on, one on each. You should have enough, one for each. Don't double up. These are just little spacers or shims. After you go ahead and shim every last one of these. We just go ahead, do that. All right, count to make sure you still have 8 left. If you don't, it means you put an extra one on. Nope, we're good. Next thing, little guys right here. Slide them on. Again, you can't double these up even if you wanted to. Won't let you. And they fit nice and snug. If they don't, then I don't know what to say. They should. And, all right. Next thing, go ahead and grab these little new seals that go on here. Slip them onto the tip and slide right down. They should slide right on, and that's why you're lubing these up, so that way they seal properly. Because if you don't slide them or lube them up, sliding them on can be a little bit fun. And right here. Make sure you push down on them. Don't just expect them to seat themselves. And that's why we're lubing them, so that way we know that it'll be good. There we go. That one went on, that one went on. Again, you have to press them down. There. I just realized that I wasn't sinking them all the way. And again, there. Make sure that they make the little farty noise. There they are. And they make that because of the assembly lube. Okay, and one more. There we go. Next thing to do, springs. Every single one of them. Just make sure the springs are sitting how they should. Just like so. And then last but not least, you can, if you have your bag full of retainers, this is a messy way of doing it, but it really does work. Just fill this full of a little bit of assembly lube. The reason why I say that is now you can mash it up a little bit, because you want these to be kind of sticky when we go to put them in, because if they're not, it makes it easier when you're installing them. You'll see. So, okay, these are gonna sit like so when we're done. They kind of gauge out like that. So just sit them like this, get them ready. And from here, we need a compressor. I'm gonna go get mine and I'll show you how to use the compressor. There's a few different ones. I'm gonna show you the one that I recommend and the one that I don't recommend. I've used it personally and it can totally ruin your project, hurt you and hurt the people around you. So I highly suggest that you do not use it, and I will show you which one it is. Do not, if you can avoid, use this. If you look at my disassembly video, you'll see me use this. If this thing slips, this pops. Trust me, do an extra $40 investment, pick yourself up this one. You can get it on Amazon and it comes really darn quick. Literally, I'm using a piece of plywood, as you can see. What you can do if you use this piece of plywood is you can just slip this underneath, slap it on here, and what we do is we tighten this from the bottom. It's gonna put pressure on that plywood and bring it up. To do this though, what we need is a towel. You slide the towel underneath your head, and what it does, it'll keep those valves completely compressed up and protect the valves. So like I said, just take a balled up towel, throw it underneath, and it'll press up on those valves. See this plate? I'm gonna hold this under here so it doesn't pop through the plywood. So this will slide over here. Pretty easy. What we're gonna do is take this, see how I've zeroed them both out? Slide it up and around. We're gonna go over here. We should have just enough just to fit right there. Next, we shouldn't even have to do anything on the top end. If you have a gap on the top, go ahead and zero it out before you even start anything. Make sure we sort of stay in the center. I'm just tightening this with my fingers for right now. What we want to make sure we do is come up through the center, because if you come up and you aren't through the center, you could bend your valve if it gets caught on the retainer, which would suck. So I'm going to go ahead, slide my little bar in here because we're starting to get some compression going on. Yeah, still watching it. Again, making sure we line that valve stem up and through the opening. There we go. Just tightening slowly here. Again, it's a long way to travel because these have a lot more spring to them, as one would say. Almost there. Again, the trick is to find the healthy balance, because if you over compress, it'll actually work against you when putting these keepers in. And maybe just a little bit more. There. All right, let's try this. So again, we got our glued up retainers right here. We go ahead, we kind of half slide them in. Just careful when you're putting your fingers in here, not to move anything around, because if this spring lets go, your fingers are gonna hurt. So what I like to do is just bring that down there, then you use a hook pick of your choice just to bring them up and into place. Now we'll bring in the camera in a second and show you what I'm talking about. Whoa, make sure that's still there. Show you a close-up of what I was doing. I used the hook pick to get these both, and you have to play with them until they seat. They're gonna have a bit of a gap, that's the way these retainers work. But try and balance the gap if you can for when you're sliding it up. But see how I have it right here? If you cannot get it in the little lip, I'll show you that on the next one. I'll drop it and I'm gonna show you right from the start. I'm just not gonna make you watch me drop in the whole thing again. You wanna get it, there's a little rim on your valve, and there's two little rims on these valve retainers over there, which I'm gonna show you afterwards. But from this, you just slowly loosen it and watch the valves. They should slowly sit in that ring, and you should see it closing up around it. I'll teach you another thing with the next one, but again, I'm gonna let you guys watch that. Yeah, it's closing up, which is good. Time to pull the pressure off of the valve, and we should be good. And again, because of the angle of the head, as you can see, it can play a little bit of a match if you don't have this on an angle like that, which it won't want to because of how it screws in. Anyways, that's it. Third time here, just because I'm trying some different camera angles. But yeah, what we need to do is slide that over and try, if you can, to meet the angle of the valve. We're gonna start to tighten it. I'm tightening it on the bottom, so that way I can see right there. I want to watch my valve stem come up and pop through. You do not want it to catch the edge of the spring retainer, because if you do, what'll end up happening is you have a chance at bending your valve. You do not want this. So make sure you're watching and making sure the center tip is coming through the center. Which it is. All right, after I get it enough, I'll show you the tip coming out. It's just the first part's a little hokey because the springs are so long, they try to bend in different directions. There we go. Tip is now through. And we're just gonna keep tightening a little bit until we can see the little ridge on the spring right there. So see how we can see, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's a little ridge on your, not on your spring, but on your valve. What we want to do is take two of these retainers, which also have little ridges and not dog hair, which I have all over my hands at a constant. And you just want to slide these in to there. Now, I'm going to just kind of line these up, if I can, in here, the best I can. And then I use a hook pick to make sure they line up proper. Make sure that it's concave so it wedges when you bring the spring up. So all we do is that, and then we can bend these around in a second. Goodbye. And then this just comes in right here. And this one just comes in right here. Come on. All right, there. This might need to come down just a little bit more so I can get it, okay? Compress. There. Okay, that one's in. Now we just got to get this one in, and yes, this is fun no matter what or how many times you do it. Okay. 1 second, magnet before we lose it. And before somebody says, why don't you just leave it on the magnet? Well, because then it'll pull it off when you pull it away. How about that? There, okay. That's now on the ridge. We line this one up on the ridge. I make sure this one's fully seated, perfect. Now that you can see that, see how it's fully seated? With these particular ones, see, now it's fully seated. I just wanted to press it on here to show you. They can be a little bit of fun. I even put an assembly lube on there to help them stick. From this point, we slowly loosen and we monitor. We want to make sure it stays in the retainer as we come up. As we can see, that one's coming up. We need to watch it. Oh, she's still, yes, she's still in the retainer. And it should come up nice and smooth. And there we go. Watch for my metal plate that I put down, and there you go. As you can see, they have just a tiny bit of a gap right here. Yes, it's a little fun. As you've seen, you're gonna balance it. You might swear your head off a little bit, but just do that. I'm not gonna make you suffer and watch through me doing both heads, but go ahead and do that to all of your heads. Now, I wouldn't be proper for me not to mention, you can buy a tool for LS motors and LT motors, which does 2 springs at once. It sits right here, you tie it down, and it compresses the spring. Rich, why don't you have that? Well, one, I use something that's more universal because I do more than one head. The second reason why I do it is because if something goes wrong, this is an aluminum head, and you strip out these every time you're doing the valves, you will cry. Professional machine shops, what they'll end up doing is they actually have a situation where they can compress 2 to 4 valves
because this sits on a plate which holds the valves underneath, and they just compress it with an arm and they just slip in 4 sets of retainers and release slowly. So that's the difference between us do-yourselfers in a garage and a machine shop. Tell you the truth, if you don't want to mess around with this and you got a couple extra bucks, ask the machine shop. They can do it in about 10 minutes, all your valves, and it might cost you an extra 50 bucks or a pack of beer. When you're doing this, another good thing is if you put your hand right here, you can shift this around to get that perfectly centered. So put your hand on this and move that spring and retainer around so that way the keepers line up. Now, when you're reading the package, you're gonna see titanium retainers and you're gonna be like, oh man, but titanium isn't the most magnetic thing, don't get me wrong, it still has some bit, but why can you use it on the keepers so easily? And that is because the keepers themselves are not titanium. They are still metal, steel, whatever. But what is these retainers on top that actually hold the spring down. And that is because that is the part you don't want to fail. And of course, the spring bust, your valve smacks. And that is steel as I pull the last off the valve.
This has got all your kits. Look at my dirty fingernail. This has all your kit specs on it. This is the kit that you need from Brian Tooley if you want the same valve spring kit that I did with the titanium retainers and the same beautifulness. So if you want that, that's the, again, right there. I'll quickly read it out, SK007C7LT1.